Right now on Movie Review Talk, we will rock you with Bohemian Rhapsody, and a major awards contender enters the fray with Boy Erased. Hey there, movie fans. Welcome to Movie Review Talk for Collider. Yes, we are back. We skipped Halloween, but we are back here with a great new slate of movies every week on Movie Review Talk. Only on Collider, we review the new movies. We pick something that's streaming. We pick something on Blu-ray for something you might have missed, or we do both. And every week I'm joined by guest critics, and here's the beauty of it. No spoilers. No spoilers. You both know the drill. No spoilers. And this week, joining me, she is my partner in crime on Collider FYC. That stands for your consideration. The one, the only, the Gold Derby pundit herself, Perri Nemiroff, my favorite film critic in the world.
I'm spoiled.
No.
I am spoiled to be in your presence for 2 shows.
No, Perri, we are like a dream team. We're like Cisco and Ebert, but much better looking. There you go.
Actually, get a screening room, not a room. Get a screening room.
Well,
also joining me against my better judgment. No, I'm just kidding.
We're not talking about La La Land.
We're not talking about La La Land, but he is a gentleman who I love and admire. He is a passionate movie fan, and he is a longtime superhero comic book writer and the creator of the bestseller Love is Love, the one, the only Marc Andreyko. Hey, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm very honored to be here. This is exciting.
Very honored to have you. And again, no spoilers here.
Yeah.
Although, we're going to have to get into spoiler territory with one of the movies, but let's get right to it. The first movie is Boy Erased. The screenwriter, the producer, the director is Joel Edgerton. The film stars Joel Edgerton, also Lucas Hedges, Nicole Kidman, and Russell Crowe. And the son of devout parents struggles with his sexuality while being forced to attend a conversion therapy program. This movie premiered at the Telluride Film Festival in the beginning of September. It has been making the rounds, and now it is finally in theaters. Perri, let's talk about Boy Erased.
Yeah, this one definitely made an impression at TIFF. I'm a huge fan of The Gift, and I was just so impressed by Joel Edgerton as a director. Just the specificity needed to nail a movie like that, the fact that he actually pulled it off exceptionally well, to the point that I watch and rewatch that movie all the time, just was applauding him big time for that. Then to see him do something so completely different with this and nail it all over again, but showing that he has so much range as a filmmaker, it was just so satisfying to see that. And then when you're talking about the subject matter of this movie, it was fairly crushing to watch for the large majority of the movie, but I am so happy that this story is going to get out there, to get out there more than it has been before, because clearly we need it. And now I want to do like a whole roll call. I'll just stop there because I don't want to bite into your time here, but I'll just say Lucas Hedges. Lucas Hedges is so good.
Okay, Marc.
Yeah, after seeing this movie, I want to see Lucas Hedges and Timothée Chalamet in a movie together, because they're the actors I hope I live long enough to see grow to their golden age, because they're both spectacular. This is an amazing movie. As a gay man, I was expecting it to be an after-school special type of thing, and I gotta say, Joel Edgerton is maybe the coolest straight guy on the planet. The fact that he sought this out and wrote this and made this, and I don't mean that as pejoratively as it sounds. I'm actually really impressed, because the subtlety and the nuance in this movie, the movie was crushing, but the movie wasn't crushing in a way of like, it wasn't Midnight Express. It was mentally crushing. And Lucas Hedges' character, with no spoilers, he has a scene towards the end with Russell Crowe that I'm like, that's the Oscar clip right there. And Nicole Kidman, holy God, Nicole Kidman is becoming such a great matriarch character. She is aging so beautifully. And what was so great for me about this movie was the simplicity of it. You see this and you just understand that, ironically, I did a book called Love is Love, that love is love. And it was a really, really emotional movie. It was one of those movies that is such a slow burn that I cried on the way home. Like 20 minutes after the movie, the emotion of it, the catharsis of it hit me. I think it's a movie for everybody. I think if you're a parent, you must see this movie.
I agree on both fronts, and so much to follow up on both of what you said. First of all, Perri, about this film being such a great moment, a great movie for right now, because because this is a film that I think will not only help people who are struggling sort of find the courage and the support and the encouragement to come out. It's okay, it's fine, you know, love is love. But I think this is also a film that has the power to change the system. I didn't know that these conversion therapy programs existed, and they're, like the film says, they're
36 states.
36
Still legal.
states. I could not believe my eyes when I read that in the film. No spoiler, but it's something that people should know, is that this is legal in 36 states.
And what was really interesting to me was how everyone was three-dimensional. There are no black hats and white hats in this. Even the villain, you learn something about. And the way that the parent, and this is based on a true story,
Yep.
and the way that they portrayed Russell Crowe and Nicole Kidman playing evangelical people in Arkansas, we as left coast elitists can play that for a little bit for laughs. They were such believable, challenged characters who had their own internal struggles about what they were dealing with their son, that it was really refreshing to see a movie that was real and not just straw men.
Well,
Yeah.
you're talking about the simplicity of the movie, too. I feel like that's where that comes into play big time, just in terms of it being so atmospheric and engrossing, and then actually giving every single character the time they deserve to be a real full person, rather than just putting the focus on your leads here or your big name stars, because pretty much everybody at that facility, they tugged on my heartstrings.
Yeah.
Every single kid I saw there.
What was great about it was this is another movie that proves that casting directors should get Oscar nominations because every single kid in that camp was fully realized. Even if they didn't talk, just the look of them,
Yeah.
you knew their story. And it was just so powerful. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. It was just so powerful and such a slow burn. It was like a time release capsule. The more I think about it, the more I want to see it again. And it was just a really beautiful film.
You know,
The
Joel
one in
Edgerton-
particular, though, I want
Yeah.
to point out really quickly is Britton Sear, who played Cameron in the movie. He was the one, and I almost didn't really see it coming to a point, even though I think they were building towards a certain moment with him. But and I'm like scared to go back and rewatch it, just because I think I'm going to be emotionally overwhelmed knowing where his path heads.
And also a big shout out to Troye Sivan in the film, you know, musician turned actor. Small but very crucial role, and he crushes it. But back to Joel Edgerton, who adapted the screenplay. He produced the film, he directed it, he co-stars as Victor, who's sort of the manager and the teacher, if you will pardon the expression, teacher at the conversion therapy place. To follow up a movie like The Gift, which I thought was a pretty brilliant film, and a movie that was haunting in the way that it really left you hanging and really stayed with you. This movie, completely different in some ways, not in others. This one's scary and unnerving for completely different reasons. But it was such to go from The Gift to Boy Erased, to grow and evolve as a screenwriter and as a director. And Marc, what you said about how the film, it's not emotionally manipulative.
No.
It doesn't push your buttons. It doesn't try too hard. Every emotion in this film is earned versus forced out of you. And I think that's a hard thing to do. I think that everyone in the film, writer, screenwriter, director, the actors, they all do it pretty brilliant.
Well, and it felt like a film from the 70s in that way. It felt like one of those films where it assumes you're a smart person, and I like a movie that assumes I can keep up with it and is challenging. And I was shocked. I went in expecting one thing, and this was so much better than I could have ever hoped for.
Well, in a way, when it doesn't spoon feed you a message too, it winds up being more impactful because it leaves you, it sends
allows
you on
you
your
to make the
way
decisions, yeah.
thinking about it, and that way it sticks with you rather than you getting something with a nice, neat little bow on it and being like, okay, that was great.
Exactly.
Put it aside until later.
Exactly. You know, the acting in the film, Lucas Hedges, Oscar nominee for Manchester by the Sea.
He might get two. He's got two. The Ben is Back looks great, fantastic.
Ben is back, and he has a supporting role in mid-90s. So it's like these days, you know, if you're casting a film and you want someone with like an angst-ridden teen, get me Lucas Hedges.
Well, a drastically different role in mid-90s too. I didn't know he was capable of being that mean. And
yeah, he was a different character in that.
He's mean but vulnerable in that.
But back to Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe. So Nicole Kidman, who is really just firing on all cylinders.
Finding her second act.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like at this stage of her career, for her to be getting the best roles she's ever had, you know, I'm talking about Boy Erased, and I'm also talking about her lead role in the film Destroyer, which we'll talk about another time, that she made, I think she made the two films like maybe 3 weeks apart. You know, to go from one role to another is such a drastic shift. But there is a scene, not spoiling it, but I've now seen the film in theaters 3 times, Boy Erased. And each time I've seen the film, there is a certain moment in the film with Nicole Kidman that when it happens, everyone in the theater applauds. Everyone applauds, everyone whoops and hollers like, yes. And it's such a great moment because the third time I saw the film and it got to that scene, I was like, okay, let's see if they're going to do it again. And they did.
And that scene didn't feel, when I talk about how each actor of the 3 leads has an Oscar, the scene for the Oscar reel, they don't feel like Oscar bait scenes. They feel real. They're earned catharsis. They're earned applause. They're earned tragedy. And she is so sublime in this movie. This might be the best performance she's ever given because the amount of screen time she has and the character that she creates out of whole cloth. This woman is so complicated, and you so understand her. And with no spoilers, her arc. Every character has an amazing arc in this movie. And like I said, I want to go see it again right now. Just talking about it has made me really want to see it again.
We have to talk about Russell Crowe, only because
so good.
You know I've always liked. I mean, from like between L.A. Confidential, then The Insider, Gladiator, Beautiful Mind,
Romper Stomper.
Romper Stomper is a great one. I mean, Cinderella Man, which came out in 2005, I think. That was like the last, like, you know, Russell Crowe type of performance that he gave. And I liked him a lot in 3:10 to Yuma. 3:10 to Yuma is a great film. State of Play is a very good movie. Not as seen. It's a little underrated and underappreciated. But this was like a return to form for Russell Crowe. He was terrific in the film. And the scene that you're talking about with Lucas Hedges is that's his for your consideration moment.
And what was one more thing I really want to point out that I think is glorious about this movie is Russell Crowe and Nicole Kidman both don't look like movie stars in this movie.
No, they don't.
These are fearless. They look like real people. They're not buff and filmed in gauze and filters and stuff. But they're not. But once again, it doesn't feel like they're trying to say, "Look at me, I'm acting."
Yeah.
They feel real and lived in.
They're not showy.
They're not showy and they're honest. Russell Crowe has become this great character actor. I want to see him and Kevin Costner in a movie together playing these middle-aged men because there's such a reality to him and such a sadness and such an inner battle that is going on in his character. He and Nicole don't have a lot of screen time, but when they do, there's so much going on. They do so much more with silence than most actors can do with 10-page monologues.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but I am eager to see this one maybe get some Best Adapted Screenplay consideration, because especially when we're talking about Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe's performance and how much they do with so little screen time, I'm really impressed by how they're worked into the script because they have their moments, but during his entire journey, it's almost like you feel them watching over him, and even though you're not seeing them on screen, you're wondering how they're going to react to everything. So when you do get to these big Oscar-type moments, they mean even more because you've had them in the back of your mind the entire time.
And they're all earned.
Yes, they are all earned.
And I do recommend reading the book that this is based on. Reading the book after seeing the movie, you'll be even more impressed with Joel Edgerton's screenwriting skills.
Well, also, you know, Perri, we've talked about this elsewhere on For Your Consideration, but I definitely think that Nicole Kidman is a front runner. And I think that Russell Crowe does deserve to be nominated as well.
And Lucas Hedges as well.
Lucas Hedges as well. I think in terms of that category, Best Actor, he's going to have tougher competition. But it is definitely a worthy performance to be nominated for. Perri, what is your letter grade for Boy Erased?
My letter grade right now for Boy Erased is an A-. This is one of those ones where I am waiting for the scale to tip when I see it again in an even more positive direction.
Okay, all right. How about you? Your letter grade?
I would say an A- just because nothing's perfect and I've only seen it once and I saw it last night and I want to give it time to breathe. I think I'm mirroring what Perri said. I think an A-, and when I see it again in a couple of days, that will only go up.
Yeah, I agree. A-, and I know I just said this, but you know, this is a film that really has the power to help people, and it has the power to change the system, which is especially fitting because November 6th, this coming Tuesday, everyone, if you're watching or listening, and please spread the word, make your part. Do your part as an American. take advantage of your right to vote and vote. If there's ever a time that we really need to vote, well, we always need to vote, but especially now, November 6th, get out there and vote, vote, vote. Take advantage of your right. Vote.
No lie. This could be, no, not could be. This is the most important election cycle. I'm 48, and this is the most important election cycle of my lifetime. And this election outcome will be affecting the kids. If you're under 30, you've got to vote, because this is for you guys. This is going to affect you. I'm going to be in the ground a long time before this affects me. This is going to affect you and your children. So it's a privilege to vote. People die in other countries for the right to vote. Please go vote.
Yeah, absolutely. I turned 50 in less than 3 weeks, and I feel the exact same way. Okay, let's move on to a film that I'm very, very excited, because I couldn't wait to talk to you both about this movie. This is a film that we have a lot to say, and we are going to say all of it, because we are talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, directed by Bryan Singer with an assist from Dexter Fletcher. The cast is Rami Malek, Gwilym Lee, and Ben Hardy. The rise of Queen, the rise of Freddie Mercury, culminating with his battle with AIDS, and his legendary show-stopping performance with a reunited Queen at Live Aid. Marc, talk to me about Bohemian Rhapsody. Oh, come on.
Okay.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, my God. This is not where I thought this was going to go already.
I'll start with the things that were great.
Oh, okay.
Rami Malek, when he was cast, I was very against it, because I had read the script that Sacha Baron Cohen was going to do, and Sacha Baron Cohen physically looks like Freddie Mercury. I will say this. Rami Malek will get an Oscar nomination from this movie, and deservedly so. I only wish the script was as worthy as his performance. It is a typical, by the numbers, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, surface level biopic that tends to become a little too jokey for its own taste. There's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of style that appears in the beginning that doesn't follow through. It's just a very mediocre script. That being said, the performances are all spot on. And when you see Queen perform, especially Live Aid, the Live Aid sequence at the end of the movie, I wish the entire movie had that level of energy, because Rami Malek is working his butt off in this movie, and it just feels like the script and the direction are fine. It's just a fine movie with a really, really great lead performance.
Perri, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
It's a little bit of a weird position to be in right now, because everyone out there, if they watched our non-spoiler separate review, they know what I think already. They know I fell in love with this movie. I walked out of that screening almost not even being able to speak. I was so emotionally moved by where it left off.
I have a question for you, though. Is that because of the glory of the Queen music and the performances and the energy? Because for me, I remember watching Live Aid as a 15-year-old.
I was there.
Watching it, I felt the nostalgia, and I felt the memories, and I felt knowing Freddie Mercury, he died of AIDS. I was coming of age during the AIDS crisis, so I brought a lot of my history to the movie. I think that makes the movie seem better than it actually is.
I've been thinking about this a lot, because obviously I filed my review before hearing anybody else's opinion. I do not read other reviews before making my own. So eventually my review came out, and then I saw everybody else's, and I saw the very varied response out there, and I started to talk with some friends, and I saw what they didn't like, and it's an interesting position to be in, to be able to fully understand why someone would have a specific reaction to something that didn't work for them in the movie, but I'm still holding so tight to my initial reaction, and I think I wasn't moved for that same reason, because I went into this not knowing all that much about Queen and Freddie Mercury, besides their greatest hits and maybe a small bullet point list of the true story. So this was all semi-new to me. And I think one of the reasons why I responded so strongly to this movie, and especially the very conventional biopic rise to fame version of this story, is because I think I needed where it ended right now, like this specific day, this specific time, this world we're living in, to end with that Live Aid scene and to see how music can bring people together, and how no matter who you are, what your sexual orientation is, what your race, anything at all of a sudden in that moment, if you are all loving that music together, it all washes away and we're all happy together. And I think that feeling and just the moving element that came with that sent me out the door with my heart so full at a time that I so desperately needed it.
I agree with both of you. Again, first with you, Mark. Yeah, for the first half of the film, it felt like a cliched, formulaic rock biopic. But then this happened, then this happened. It felt episodic. Oh, now they're gonna record Bohemian Rhapsody. Now they're gonna record Killer Queen. You know, now they're gonna record We Will Rock You. But it's the second hour of the film where Bohemian Rhapsody really finds its footing, because that is where you really empathize with Freddie Mercury as a loner, as a misfit, as a man who just is, where does he fit? Where does he belong? And I really empathized with him during those moments.
Oh yeah, Rami Malek, Freddie Mercury was such a grand character that Rami Malek, especially the party scene when he has the mansion and he throws that big party, the loneliness there was really profound. And I think you should see this movie for sure.
Oh, sure.
I just wish the movie was as good as the movie Rami Malek was making.
But here's the thing. So Freddie Mercury, he died of AIDS in 1991. And I kept thinking before I saw the film, how are they going to end this movie without it being depressing? And guess what? They made a film that was rousing and uplifting. And this was a film that not to review the making of the film, but it was notorious for its behind-the-scenes battles with director Bryan Singer, and that he was fired from the movie and replaced with Dexter Fletcher, who ironically is now directing a film about Elton John.
Yeah.
I think maybe your points about it, sort of like, you know, why couldn't the whole movie have had sort of this energy? It felt like two different films. But I feel like they did work well together, and I feel like in spite of the behind-the-scenes struggles, the movie was an absolute triumph. And I have to say that compared to another film that was also about music, not based on a true story, but one that is doing very, very well, much better reviewed, A Star Is Born. And I've said before, I really enjoyed A Star Is Born, but when it was over, I was like, oh, okay, it's A Star Is Born. But when Bohemian Rhapsody was over, I'm with you, Perri. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that movie's amazing. I was so pumped. And it ended so strong that it made me overlook and forget the flaws of the first half of the film. Much in the same way, completely different film, but much in the same way that Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. For the first half of the film, I thought it was lethargic. The characters didn't really embrace me at all. I didn't really get to them. But the second half of the film was so strong, and it ended so great that I walked out pumped and loving it, and I was able to overlook the flaws of the first half.
Oh, there's no denying the emotional punch of the last part of the movie, because when they reunite, and this isn't a spoiler because this is public history, when they reunite to perform at Live Aid, and Freddie hasn't performed, and his voice is going back, and his voice is not there. The moment he goes out there, not knowing if he's going to be able to perform, and he just feeds. I mean, once again, goosebumps. He just feeds off the energy of the crowd, and him knowing that this is probably his last hurrah. And
it was.
There was such an emotional catharsis that I was in tears watching this. And it's beautifully staged, and it's definitely a movie worth seeing, but the last 25 minutes of this movie deserve a Best Picture nomination.
I think for all of those 25 minutes, I was on the verge of tears. And I've said this before, and when we can spoil things, I'll tell everybody. There's one particular shot in the Live Aid scene that broke me.
Oh.
The second I saw that, it's not even a shot of any of the main characters. There's just one shot in that, and I saw that, and I was just like in a puddle of tears.
I grew up in Philadelphia, and I was at Live Aid in Philadelphia in 1985. So when Queen took the stage, they showed it on the monitors and everything like that. Listen, Live Aid was a big moment. It was definitely one of the most incredible experiences I ever had in my life. It was incredible.
Can I interject one last thing? There was one thing in the movie that really removed me from the movie every time this person was on screen. It's the horrible miscasting of Mike Myers in this movie.
Oh, come on. Mike Myers in the film was inspired casting.
God-awful makeup, an in-joke to Wayne's World.
But that's what was so great about it, Marc. Come on.
This isn't called...
I love that.
No. I didn't buy him.
It didn't take me out of the movie, but I also didn't
minute.
appreciate it for that reason. I was just kind of, I guess at that point, coasting. Like, it looked fine enough to me.
For me, it was smug and lazy, and it just drove me crazy.
See, I thought that was really, okay, that was very cool. I mean, look, it was just a nice sort of like, cameo for what it was worth. The thing about, go ahead.
I just want to give Lucy Boynton a little love here, too, because that was one element of the movie that I was kind of fascinated by the relationship between Mary and Freddie and tracking that throughout the entire movie. And she is one of those ones. I think I'm going to put her in the Timothy Chalamet, Lucas Hedges category, where I think they are some of the best of their generation.
Well, yeah, she took a part that was not, in real life, was a supporting part and an afterthought to the lead character. And once again, much like Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe, every time she's on screen, she's a fully realized character. They don't tell us everything about her, but I feel like I know her deeply. She
pairs so well with him. They have so much chemistry.
Somebody should put them in a movie together again.
I know this is a true story to a point, but like I want to talk about so many things that I think would fall in a spoiler category. But watching how she kind of nudges his journey along throughout the film, I found that to be a very well done piece of the story.
And the scene that could have been the most cliche between the two of them. That's what was so frustrating about this movie for me. There are scenes, there are pearls amongst the swine in here, and it's like, bring the rest of the movie up to that. The scenes between the two of them are not only electric in the whole movie, but the climactic scene about the big issue is so underplayed and so subtle and so honest that it has a real emotional catharsis. And she elevates this from just being the girlfriend to being an important, much like the parents in Boy Erased. Her presence is felt the entire movie.
I agree with you completely. And I have to say that with regards to when I saw the film, initially, and I posted on Twitter, it was a big rave tweet about it, but I loved the film. And then I started seeing just some of the other reactions on social media that they were very, very mixed. With a lot of people saying, oh, it was like a cliche rock biopic, whatever. But I feel like because the movie's it's around 60% as of right now, Friday, November 2nd, on Rotten Tomatoes, barely fresh. I feel like this is going to be a movie like Greatest Showman, that reviews will be mixed, but people who see the film will love it. And on top of that, for a whole new generation to discover the greatness that is Queen.
Can you imagine being able to discover Queen for the first time now?
Yep.
I walked over to Amoeba and bought 3 Queen CDs after I saw the
Did you really?
Yes.
I went home and I watched the entire Live Aid performance for the first time, and I think I was just playing Queen music for days on end after.
The soundtrack CD for the album has the live. It's all actually Freddie Mercury, and they remastered all the Live Aid stuff for the soundtrack. And it sounds better than it did then.
Yeah, I really think this is going to be like the Greatest Showman of 2018. So what's your letter grade, mister?
I would give Rami Malek's performance an A, almost an A+. And I would give the movie a high B-, low B. It's definitely worth seeing. It's a flawed movie, and it's frustrating because the stuff that's great really works, and the stuff that doesn't is just kind of flat.
Okay, Perri.
I'm sticking with where I was before. I am giving this movie an A, and I'll let you know it's an emotional A. I will never forget the experience of seeing this for the first time and how I felt walking away from it. But we are human beings, opinions change over time, and I'm very curious, after having certain conversations and understanding what is possibly off-putting about certain parts of this movie and understanding where those feelings and those criticisms come from, I'm very curious to see how it affects my second viewing, but this is my review of the first one, so it's getting a big A for me.
I'm giving it an A-. The minus, it's down just a merit just because of the first half of the film. But ultimately, I'm giving it a very strong A- because of the way I felt when it was over. And when it was over, I was pumped. I was excited. I was really inspired. I love the film. I was very entertained from start to finish. I felt like it got better as it went along, and it ended so strong. So there you go. Bohemian Rhapsody. B-, A-, and see it. I mean, see this movie and let us know what you think.
And you should see it with a crowd. Because
sure.
It was a very concert mentality. It wasn't people texting and tweeting and on their phone. It was people being brought up in the music of Queen, which is always a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, moving right along to another wide release this weekend. This is Nutcracker and the Four Realms, directed by Lasse Hallström, with an assist by Joe Johnson, another sort of trouble production there. The cast is Mackenzie Foy, Keira Knightley, and Richard E. Grant, about a young girl transported to a magical world of soldiers, mice, and the regents who preside over the realms. Now, Perri, I know you did not see this movie. Bullet dodged.
Nope.
Okay, Marc, what did you think?
Definitely. I describe this movie as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wonderland. We have seen all of this before. The movie, it's another hero's journey about a girl with a dead mother. Disney has a thing about moms. You don't want to be a mom in a Disney movie. On paper, all these pieces should add together to a glorious perennial Christmas favorite. You have Lasse Hallström, who's an amazing director. You have Joe Johnston, who's directed some, The Rocketeer is a great classic film. You have Helen Mirren, Richard E. Grant, Keira Knightley. And this movie is, to paraphrase what Stephen King said about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, it's a Cadillac with no engine. The production values are glorious. The score is great. I can't hate this movie because the movie is so blandly competent that I feel nothing.
I felt nothing. Yeah, that's the thing for me. I felt nothing in this film, and it did remind me of how much nothing I felt watching both versions of Alice in Wonderland.
This is better than that, but that's damning it with faint praise.
I mean, the first Alice was okay. The second one was a waste, but the first one made over $1 billion, so you had to make a second.
And much like the first two Alice movies, this one's at least only 90 minutes long.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's definitely not a long film, but I just felt first of all, the sets, the costume design, all that stuff was glorious and gorgeous to look at. But there was no soul, there was no heart. The characters, first of all, I just, every time I've seen the Nutcracker over the years in different forms as a play or on TV, sorry, Nutcracker is boring. It's boring. I know it's a classic and whatever, and I know people love it, whatever. I always thought it was boring. And the movie is boring. I think the other problem, I hate to say it, is that Mackenzie Foy, she can't carry the film. She's not good enough to carry a big production like this with actors like Richard E. Grant, and Keira Knightley, and Helen Mirren. It's not. She's a passable. She's okay.
She's like the movie. She's perfectly fine, but I'm not invested in her. And there's a couple, when you have Helen Mirren and Richard E. Grant in a movie, there are a couple performances in it that are so, no pun intended, wooden.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, this was the best take you guys had? And I just don't know who the movie is for. That's the thing. This movie allegedly cost about $150 million because it's been in production for almost 2 years. And I don't know why Disney, the house of franchises, what they were thinking about on this movie, because I don't know what the upside is, unless they needed the write-off, because I can't imagine this movie engendering any feeling one way or the other. It's too bland to hate.
Yeah, I mean, really, I get that if you look at the target demo, it's, maybe like young girls, teenage girls, whatever. But
they're smarter than that. This is an uninteresting, lifeless.
I agree. I mean, I agree completely, and I feel real bad. And Perri,
all I keep thinking about is what one person told me that Keira Knightley eats her own hair. I'm like, maybe I should see it just for that.
Yeah, she does eat her own hair. That was like the funniest part of the movie. But I thought was an assault on the senses.
And the script makes no sense. There's no internal logic in the movie. I still to this day don't really know what the movie is about.
No, I don't either. I mean, I know
it's about a bunch of stuff happening, but I mean,
it's the Nutcracker. Yeah. Like, what else do you need to know other than the fact that the Nutcracker is boring?
And
Ironically,
the scenes that are the most vivid in the movie are the scenes of Misty Copeland, the prima ballerina, doing a ballet in the beginning and the final credits, because you're seeing people physically doing something they love that's impressive as opposed to all this empty CG.
All right, well, what's your letter grade? I hate to ask.
Oh, God. I can't give it a D or an F because that engenders that I feel an emotion to it. This is a straight C right down the middle.
Yeah.
It's in focus. It's well made. No one bumps into sets. But other than that, it's an utter failure.
I mean, it's a movie that I admire the production design of it and all that stuff. It was a pretty movie to look at, but again, lifeless and soulless, and unfortunately, I mean, it just seems like it's right up Disney's alley to do a movie like this and to miss and. Well,
this is their second. Wrinkle in Time. This is the second big budget dud that just felt bland and like cinematic mayonnaise.
I give it I'm going with the C-.
Mayonnaise.
Cinematic mayonnaise. Well, I like mayonnaise. What's wrong with mayonnaise?
Of course you do.
All right, well, let's move on to a film that is streaming and on Blu-ray. And this, to me, is one of the best movies of the year. It is BlackKklansman, directed by Spike Lee, starring John David Washington, Adam Driver, Topher Grace, based on the true story of Ron Stallworth, an African-American police officer from Colorado Springs who successfully infiltrates the local chapter of the KKK. I love this film. Perri.
So it's interesting with some of the other grades I've given how, sometimes your opinion changes on movies as you watch and you rewatch and as you get older and grow and have life experience. I saw BlackKklansman when it came out back in August, and I hadn't rewatched it until last night. And I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was great back in August. I watched it again, and that script in particular, so many of the performances, I think this is pretty exceptional. And a lot of times what I do, because I love horror movies, is before I go to bed, I'll watch something in the dark, and most people, when they do that, they stay awake all night because it's unnerving, and I can't really understand that, because I don't think many of those things scare me. This did. I could not fall asleep last night, because you have this movie, this story all on its own that almost has a little bit of a fun energy to it, where it's easy to root for the characters, and where it ends up, it gives you something good to hold on to, and then Spike Lee pulls the rug out from under you, both within the movie itself and then also with the footage that he adds at the end. And I'll tell you, last night I was just in a sweat by the time I finished it, and I could not stop the wheels in my head from turning.
All right, Marc.
Honestly, I made it halfway through it last night because I had seen 3 movies yesterday to be prepared for today. So I can only comment on the first half. I thought the first half, you saying that it shifts makes me happy, because I thought the first half was tonally a mess. I felt like I didn't know if I was watching Undercover Brother or I was watching a drama.
I like Undercover Brother.
I do too,
2002.
but I just thought this movie whiplashed the first half for me between broad comedy and trying to be about something, which has always been my problem with Spike Lee tonally. I think that my favorite Spike Lee movie, ironically, is Bamboozled. I think that's a movie that it was, if that came out today, it would be a huge hit, because it's very, very relevant. We're not playing Schmoedown. We don't need release dates.
I can't help myself.
So I really don't feel fair commenting too much about it, but I will now knowing that I've had some coffee and I'm awake and it changes tone in the second half, I will finish it.
I will say I had a similar reaction after my first viewing, and then I think being able to watch it again and see some of the details and have a more firm understanding of what some of that comedy is commenting on, and how real and on the nose, but in a good way. Like, I see what he's getting at, and it was more powerful for me the second time around.
Well, that makes me happy, because
I
I want to see, and lots of people I respect really, really like it. So I want to have the full meal before I give the restaurant a grade.
I love BlackKklansman. I loved it when it came out in August, and I watched it again. I think this is Spike Lee's most fully realized movie, and after more than 20 features plus more than 10 documentaries, a filmmaker who is extremely prolific and has done basically everything that he can do. Movies like Inside Man, which is very broad and mainstream, and that he can do like a remake of Old Boy, and that he can just do so many different things. But when I go to a Spike Lee movie, I like having my buttons pushed by him. He likes to provoke, and he definitely, obviously his best known film is Do the Right Thing. His screenplay was nominated for an Academy Award for that film, and I feel like this movie could get nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, because Spike Lee this would be a great career type of movie to honor him.
Has he ever been nominated for Best Director?
Not for Best Director. Mm-hmm. He's never been nominated for Best Director. I know, he should have been for Do the Right Thing. But this is a film that, it's broad, it's mainstream, it's very entertaining, it's informative. The way they make fun of the KKK. This is not a comedy, but they do make fun of the KKK, and the performances by John David Washington and Topher Grace is terrific in the movie.
I could see him. I hope his agents are watching, because they should campaign for a Best Supporting Actor performance.
Well, if they should, but I think the Best Supporting Actor nomination here is going to go to Adam Driver, who was sensational in this movie.
And I was a little cold on that prediction, but after rewatching it,
welcome to the club.
It's like, when you're playing the prediction game, it's about, getting the temperature of the room and making an accurate prediction. It shouldn't necessarily be based on your personal opinion when you're doing that, but now my personal opinion is kind of seeping into it, because I really do think he deserves that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his in general, but I thought in what I've seen, he's the one that felt like knew what movie he was in. He was the perfect balance of some of the more broad comedic stuff with some real deep understanding, and his performance is less showy than Topher Grace's, but definitely a really, really, really nuanced performance.
The realization that his character comes to in this movie really got under my skin in a good way, in a way that I think was very effective.
I love BlackKklansman. I think it's one of the very best movies of the year. And if you have not seen BlackKklansman when it was in theaters, now's your chance. You can stream it on iTunes. You could definitely check out the Blu-ray, which has all the usual bonus features and all that stuff. But this is a film that Wow, there's a lot going on in this studio. There is a big reason to see BlackKklansman. It's an entertaining film. It is an awards contender, and it deserves to be. I love this movie. I'm glad you did too. Finish watching it.
I will. I promise.
Marc,
I'll let you know.
Now, streaming right now. I couldn't figure out what to pick to stream, but since it is the beginning of November, I saw that Netflix started streaming one of my very favorite movies of all time. And I'm sure they are doing this because the director of this movie also directed Roma, which is going to be the big Netflix award season film that they're going to be pushing for, and rightly so, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. And the movie that they're now streaming on Netflix, which is one of my favorites, it is Children of Men, which came out in 2006. Did you ever see Children of Men?
I have seen.
We're living in it.
Men. Yeah.
We are living in it. Exactly. We are living in Children of Men. I mean, this is a film that when it came out on December 25th, 2006, and ironically, because it's about the birth of a baby, the first baby born in 19 years, and it is just bravura filmmaking. It is, sort of a dystopian science fiction that made me think of it as the Blade Runner of the 21st century. But it was shocking how much more relevant and timely it is in 2018.
It's very Kubrick influenced.
Yeah.
It's got a very
Kubrick.
clinical coldness to it, which is really effective. That movie is so. Cuarón's one of our very best directors. I mean, if you haven't seen Y Tu Mama Tambien
Or Gravity.
Watch those movies. Watch Gravity, Y Tu Mama Tambien, Harry Potter, and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and you'll see the diversity. He's like the Mexican Billy Wilder.
Great director.
Every single movie is a different genre, and every single movie is fantastic.
His Harry Potter movie, Prisoner of Azkaban, the third one from 2004, that was the best Harry Potter.
Absolutely.
It was weird tracking your process the entire time while you were just introducing that, because we were discussing The Night Comes For Us, so I'm like, he's going to land there, he's going to land there, and all of a sudden you're like, Children of Men.
Children of Men. So yes, Children of Men is streaming on Netflix right now, so check that out. Okay, where can people find you on social media?
At Marc Andreyko on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. I do movie fights occasionally. I'm always around here. You can buy my comic books. The next issue of Supergirl comes out in a week from Wednesday. And yeah.
All right, Perri, what about you?
At P. Nemiroff, Twitter and Instagram. And the reason that I didn't see Nutcracker is because I had to watch Leave No Trace, because the upcoming episode of Collider FYC is all about Best Adapted Screenplay, and we'll have an interview with writer-director Deborah Vanek. So check that out on Monday.
Well, you definitely dodged a bullet and picked the right thing to do that interview and rewatch Leave No Trace, which is terrific. I saw it at Sundance. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at MovieMance. Make sure you please like and share. I was going to say for your consideration,
You can say that
but
too.
you could do that. Yeah, make sure you like and share for your consideration, but especially because we're doing Movie Review Talk, please like and share Movie Review Talk. Please hit me up at MovieMance and let me know what you think. Let us know what you thought of the movies we talked about today, and make sure you like and share the podcast version and review the podcast version so we can actually get it moving up the podcast, the iTunes charts. And I say this again, we talked about this at the top of the show. November 6th is a very important day, Tuesday, November 6th. Please do your part. Embrace your right as an American and vote. Everyone needs to get out and vote. And yes, your vote does count. So vote, vote, vote on November 6th. Make sure you hashtag us and hashtag vote, vote, vote. Put it in the comment section below, hashtag vote. On the next episode of Review Talk, it's going to be a good one. We got The Grinch, we got The Girl in the Spider's Web, and just in time for the elections, we're going to be reviewing Hugh Jackman in The Frontrunner. Until then, here's looking at you, kid.
Hey everybody, Marc Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. If you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.